Hey, good evening, Jeff, Wiley. It's Ryan in Texas. How are you both doing on this Thursday evening?
Doing good.
I got a lot of personal problems.
Okay. Well, guess what? Guess what? I can beat you in that department. So, just to make it right, now, actually, I'm in an undisclosed location in Texas, but my background is all grayed out because I can't say where I am exactly doing some construction, but I'm going to have a sip of wine. Cheers to you.
Cheers, big ears. What are you drinking tonight, kids?
I am drinking Bogle Family Vineyard. Let's see if I can get that into the camera right there. That is just a red blend of Petite Syrah, something else I can't read, and Cabernet Sauvignon. So this one is, and I have a comment about that, which I'll get to in a minute. But what are you drinking, Wiley?
This is real classy. So I'm still working on what I was drinking last week because I didn't drink anything else.
Sacrilege.
And I'm not even halfway through the bottle.
So you're drinking a German.
So it's still, it's still from California and still a dry Gewürztraminer from the Anderson.
Gewürztraminer.
Does it taste okay in your opinion, Wiley?
Yeah, it's a great wine.
And Ryan, in your aficionado's opinion, how long can white wine? How long is white wine drinkable after opened?
It's definitely 2 or 3 years.
Get out of here!
No,
guys, it doesn't expire.
I would say a week.
A
week is pushing it. Okay, I mean, to me, a couple of days is pushing it on anything. But
all right, but if Wiley likes it, that's what counts, right?
Wiley doesn't want to buy that many bottles of wine.
Well, you know,
that's a different issue. That's a different issue than whether it tastes good.
No, Jeff, I have what you have. I have one of those little air pumps.
Yeah. Oh.
I see. It does not taste like vinegar, guys. It tastes beautiful.
All right.
You know what else you have is a fresh coat of lipstick. You look delicious tonight, young lady.
Oh my. Well, I'm feeling delicious in my new BDS sweatshirt. I think a good week to wear that after Israel made people's electronic devices explode. So
now, before we get to that, because our show is also explosive, I want to go back to something that was brought up last week. Jeff was putting me under the spotlight. What is a Cabernet Sauvignon? Are there rules and things like that?
Well, it was about if there's a blend. You know, it was labeled a Cabernet, and then I looked closer, and it was actually a blend. So what's the ratio?
Okay, so I'm drinking a blend, which doesn't have any particular ratio, but a Cabernet Sauvignon can also be a blend. And it turns out in the United States, especially California, it has to be at least 75% of the Cabernet Sauvignon grape to be allowed to be called that. But if you're in Australia or the EU, it has to be 85%. Then compared to other reds, hold on. This is the most important part.
I hope you're not going to give us the law for every nation.
No. It means that you also have a much higher alcohol content. So there you go. You can drink less and get more benefit. So actually, it's efficient.
All right. Well, thank you. So we have an answer to the question. I have another question for you, and I'm not expecting an immediate answer. Maybe you can do
creamy
research.
Creamy tannins.
No. Tonight I'm drinking Cocoa Bon, which I got at Trader Joe's for $6.99. It's a California blend, Merlot, Zinfandel, and Petite Syrah. But here's my question. And by the way,
I'm so impressed you made a graphic for this, Jeff. This is amazing.
Oh, I'm a professional, baby. Yeah. I may buy cheap wine, but I'm a professional podcaster. I put the money into the podcast, not into the wine. So here's my question. And by the way, this is not a commercial for Trader Joe's, but if you happen to be near a Trader Joe's, this is for the consumer, not for Trader Joe's. For
Wiley's next to like 12 of them.
Yeah. And I used to be also. $6.99, great price. Fruit forward, they say, which borderline a little bit semi-sweet, which I know a lot of people don't like, but I think it's great. It's got a lot of different things going on in it for an inexpensive wine. But here's the question. I noticed that and again, it's no problem if you don't know the answer to it, but the vintage, which is to say the year, is a big thing in wine, But I noticed that sometimes there's no year, and this is such a bottle. And so what's the story in that?
I think I know the answer to this.
Go.
I think I've done this in a wine tasting once.
What?
So I think it's when they blend wines from different years. That's my understanding of why they would not put a year.
I think you might be right.
Yeah.
And I think it's because somebody gave me that answer before, but here's why I don't think that is. I don't think
here's why it's not right. I almost drank out of the bottle.
I don't think you're incorrect, but here's why that doesn't really make sense to me. Okay, so you're blending years, but shouldn't they tell the consumer what the particular blend is for the year? Like, how do I know that I'm drinking whatever this combination is that was made this year versus a combination they put together 3 years ago? You see what I'm saying?
I think actually you should probably stay away from those wines. I mean, so just
it either matters or it doesn't. I mean, if all the wine snobs are going to say it matters what the year is, then why doesn't it matter with blends?
Our audience would like to know if it has a cork or cap. Well, since I'm drinking the same one, mine was a cork.
Yeah, I was a cork today, and by the way, I'm a little bit offended because wines that have caps can be very good wines too. So
no debate.
That's probably a callback to last week when I was explaining what the problem is with the wine pumps and screw tops.
Know,
and by the way, on night 2, it was not nearly as good as night 1.
I told you. I tell you.
I have no taste buds apparently, guys, because it tastes the same to me. I don't know. It tastes like good wine, not vinegar. It's still good.
Well, so anyway, while we're enjoying this wine, I mean, we have had, U.S. Tour of Duty, Ask the Inspector, The World.
Shit show of a week.
Everything's been crazy. I even burned my breakfast. Yes, shit show. I was reading an article today, actually, and I'm just going to flash it up there because this is becoming one of the leading issues of, as we know, we all know this, censorship and free speech. I highly recommend this article, which is by Matt Taibbi. Is that how you say it? Taibbi?
Taibbi.
I think it's Taibbi.
Yeah, I always got it wrong. Forever.
It's a great article.
It's an incredible
I have many years of rehearsing his name because his father was a newscaster on the NBC affiliate in New York for many years. And I would hear his name over and over again, Mike Taibbi.
So in any case, this is a fascinating article. And I wanted to lead with a video, but I'm just going to jump in here. The thing that is striking to me is this is almost a blueprint for what's actually going on in terms of how our government targets people. It's not just a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. In this article, they actually go through how the New York Post had published an article that the State Department was going around creating a blacklist to discredit people that were opposed to the policies of the current administration. And actually, I have that here. This was the State Department memo where they quote a Congressman, Jim Banks, and I'll show his letter in a minute, as if he was writing for Russian media. And they say Republican Congressman Jim Banks is sure that the Biden administration is knee-deep in attempts to suppress freedom of speech. And they go on to talk about this in the memo as if it is basically that he is working for the Russian government.
It's so misleading. It drives me absolutely crazy. I know Scott got embroiled and stuff around RT, and I'll say I have friends and people I've worked with, like Abby Martin, who worked and had shows on RT, and they've said consistently that they're shows were not biased by the network, that they let them do their own thing. In America, a lot of the time, left perspectives, especially if they're more in the anti-war zone, they won't get put on the air on any network. There's no network. So when people turn to RT because they have funding and you can actually have a show and have a career, it is a reasonable decision to make. And if they aren't biasing your reporting, I don't see what the problem is. It really bothers me.
Well,
especially if we're not at war.
The one thing that was interesting in the article that the State Department refused to mention, and now this is a little hard to see, on the lower right is Congressman Jim Banks's letter, where he writes to Secretary Blinken about how the State Department is funding foreign organizations to promote censorship in America. Isn't that interesting? Because all we hear about from our favorite heroine, Hillary Clinton and Kamala and others, is that it's foreign interference. So GDI, Global Disinformation Index, is a British-based company that is funded by the State Department through cutouts. I mean, this is like pure Bond villain type of activity where they're funding cutouts to then discredit journalists and authors in the United States, get the advertisers intimidated so that they don't go on there. They've got their scorecards. So it's very simple. It's very transparent. And a lot of this was in the Twitter files. Remember the Twitter files?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is something that is embraced, enabled, and promoted by our leading politicians. And I'm talking about the Democratic Party in particular, and ordinary Democrats who applaud it. And it's... let's take a look at a video clip of Stacey Plaskett, who's a Democrat congresswoman from the Virgin Islands, Tim Walz, who you know is the Democrat vice presidential candidate, and the legendary Hillary Clinton, back to back. Listen to these wonderful people.
Now, many of my Republican colleagues across the dais will rush to cover that they have Mr. Kennedy here because they want to protect his free speech, that they do not believe in American censorship. This is not the kind of free speech that I know of, the free speech that is protected by the Constitution's First Amendment.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
I think it's important to indict the Russians, just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence, because the Russians are unlikely, except in a very few cases, to ever stand trial in the United States.
Love it.
God, I'm glad that woman never became president. Can I say that? Am I allowed to say that?
Yes, you are.
But since this show is called The Whiners, we should at least acknowledge that she's reportedly a great lover of Chardonnay, maybe a little too much.
Oh, God, I thought that was going somewhere else, and I'm glad it was to the wine.
Yeah. And the Chardonnay queen.
And I had thrown up one of Tartuan's comments. Am I saying that right? I don't know if I am. Taunton. She was saying that they said Russia was only promoting certain views. I wouldn't agree with that. And I would say what's more important, if you're talking about free speech, is that America actually equally presents different views, and America does not do that. So America cuts out the anti-war voices. You don't see someone like Jeffrey Sachs on the mainstream media anymore now that he says other things. So I would say if America was willing to give a platform to opposition, then yes, but they're not.
That's one of the crazy things about all this crap, that they say regarding Russian interference. It kind of implies that the U.S. media is so wonderful and pure, and the Russians are going to make it impure. Whereas the obvious reality is the internet is like everything, including the trashiest of trash, as well as good stuff. So to say that the Russians interfere like in a way that's significant is like saying when you go down to the Pacific Ocean with a Dixie cup and you scoop up some water, that's going to affect the sea level. The Russians aren't even going to affect the election. That's what the internet is. The internet is international, and it's everybody saying everything.
Wait, Jeff. President Putin is for Kamala Harris. So,
that's what he says.
Think about that.
Yeah. Well, and Russia isn't making up new perspectives. Even when they were sharing memes, well, the ones that were coherent, a lot of them weren't coherent, but it wasn't the Russian government, first off. And second off, they weren't promoting things that weren't already issues on the ground. They were just sharing stuff about things like, I remember Kamala Harris claiming that the whole Colin Kaepernick thing was Russia. And it's like, come on, like, are you joking? Are you pretending all these people here didn't think that until one site no one saw posted it?
You're right. And one thing that comes into my mind that Walt said there and that we hear over and over again is this question of protecting democracy, and that our fight is all about democracy. Now, I want to get just a tad nerdy. Everybody knows that George Orwell warned us in 1984 about this dictatorship, and people always go into that. I was nerding out because he also wrote an essay, and I actually don't know what the timing was, but it was probably later, called Politics and the English Language, where he actually listed out meaningless words in the English language. And one of the key words that he named was democracy. And he said that democracy has no actual agreed definition from anybody. And that the way that it's used is that the defenders of every regime claim that they are the democratic ones, and that they don't want to use they don't want to let anyone have a definition of it because then that limits what they can say. So what they do is they use the word in a dishonest way with their own private definition, and they let you keep whatever you think democracy means, and then that's how they control the narrative. So that's definitely an interesting thing, because he wrote that long enough ago, and now literally that's what we hear all the time. And it's almost like we're being nudged. I think that's a word, right, that we have used. People are being herded into thinking a certain way. And I want to play actually something else, because I think it's relevant to the assassination attempts, but also this question of herding people in a certain direction, this group think. One of my favorite orange jumpsuit ladies, Jean-Pierre, the White House spokeswoman, who should be maybe in an orange jumpsuit, had some things to say in terms of controlling the way people were thinking. So I have this beautiful little video from her to show.
So you're saying that the president and vice president believe that former President Donald Trump should be toning down his rhetoric?
So I'll say this. President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy. He's been clear-eyed about that.
2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Great question.
If anything, from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it, because American people are watching. And to say that from an administration who has consistently condemned political violence, from an administration where the president called the former president and was grateful that he was okay. Who has called out January 6th, called out the attacks of Paul Pelosi, called out and said we need to lower the temperature after the Butler incident.
Oh, reversal.
And now for you to make that kind of comment in your question, because your question involved a comment and a statement.
Oh.
And, you
Where
know,
was that? You can't have a comment in a question.
Incredibly dangerous.
Incredibly dangerous.
Wow. Well, something that Ryan and I talked about a bunch in another episode that hopefully I will be able to finish editing soon that we recorded was a lot of the parallels between how many times they referred to Trump as treasonous and Kennedy as treasonous in papers leading up to the time around the assassinations happened. So I do think that rhetoric is noticeable. I can't believe she turned it.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well, it's not just rhetoric. Now it's actual laws. In California, they just passed a couple of new laws that make it very difficult to disseminate parody without having to worry about state interference. Let me play the video that sort of triggered this. And this is a parody of a Kamala Harris campaign video that Elon Musk disseminated, promoted, touted, whatever word you want to use. Dangerous. And then it led to California passing legislation into 2 new laws. Let's watch it first.
Hi, Kamala Harris, and your Democrat candidate for president, because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant.
That's just a portion of it, but you get the idea. It's obviously a parody, right?
Yeah.
So,
and not making it look like it's coming out of her mouth, by the way, which they implied.
Yeah. So Gavin Newsom thinks that should be illegal. He tweeted saying exactly that. I'm not exaggerating or distorting or anything. Yeah.
Literally working on a parody that does that right now. I'm going to get myself arrested.
So by contrast to all these things they're saying about Trump that have resulted in Trump being assassinated twice, Elon Musk tweeted, let me see if I can find it. Elon joke. God, we have so many things loaded up here. I know I have it somewhere. I think I have it.
That's just all the prep we did.
Oh, here it is.
Be ready.
Right. So Elon Musk got into trouble for this, and now the Secret Service may be after him. It's not clear whether or not they want to have a word with him. And no one is even trying to assassinate Biden, Kamala. All right, you can say that's not the most prudent tweet or post, but compared to some of the other things that are going on, and the anti-Trumpers are freaking out over this.
Jeff, I mean, the thing that is important about the question is he's not saying, like wink, wink or something like that. It is typically the case that people who are about to or are in power are assassinated. So it is a little bit.
Well, I thought, let's say, we can each have our own theories, but then he gave his own theory. I thought he meant was, because we have this war of rhetoric where one side is saying, your rhetoric is causing the violence. No, your rhetoric is. I thought he was saying, well, the evidence is it's the anti-Trumpers who are causing the rhetoric because nobody is trying to kill Kamala Harris. I thought that's what he meant. But he's now saying he was joking. That's what he's saying. And so he deleted that, and here he is claiming that it was a joke. I mean, I don't even get the joke, frankly. I mean, I'm somebody who thinks that any topic, no matter how serious it is, there's the possibility of humor. So I'm not saying you can't joke about it. I just don't get what the joke would be.
I didn't find it to be a joke, but I also didn't think it was a death threat or anything like I would think Joe Biden talking about putting a target on Trump is more clearly something that would fall into that category than Elon Musk saying they keep trying to assassinate one of them. Why aren't they trying to go for the other?
Oh, this is the California code, right?
Yeah. So now they're saying, well, you can't misrepresent what a candidate's saying, and some people are like, oh, well, that's how it should be. And others are saying, well, satire is exempt. But I think satire is just plain old exempt when you're not talking about a political candidate. There's actually 2 laws that were just passed. This is the one that refers specifically to a political candidate. We were talking about this last time and asked the inspector, and we were kind of looking it up on the internet as we were talking. But today I looked a little closer at it. This is the one that, as I said, refers specifically to political candidates. And if you look at the bottom part that's highlighted, it says satire or parody isn't illegal if you put a disclaimer that says this such and such has been manipulated for purposes of satire or parody.
In other words, if you say this is not funny anymore.
Yeah. You can say, I don't think that kills it. I mean, if a video is funny, even if you start it by saying this is,
the point
disclaimer,
is,
this isn't
I
real.
disagree. The point is, it's about controlling.
It's unnecessary.
It is.
I agree.
But wouldn't it be illegal to put a Saturday Night Live clip of them without that disclaimer?
I would assume that the context of the show kind of helps you there. Again, I'm not arguing.
But that's not what it says. It doesn't say.
I'm not arguing for the disclaimer at all. I'm not saying I think it's wise. I'm saying at least I know we can use that, because I wouldn't mind putting it on the front of my satire videos if that gets them to leave me the F alone. But like,
all right, but look at this.
Yeah.
Look what Gavin Newsom said. He says, I just signed a bill to make this illegal. He's referring to the clip I just showed you. The parody.
He didn't really make it illegal according to what he just wrote, though.
No, I know. Well, one thing is how we interpret it, but look at what the governor of California is saying. He's saying that this parody of a campaign video that I just showed you is illegal.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think
so the question is, how is it going to be enforced? Now, I don't know if we should worry more about what the governor is saying or if we should worry more about what judges are saying. But it seems to me, I don't want to worry about either. Like, I'd rather live in a world where if it's an obvious parody, then it's just a parody and we don't have to label it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you think back to, do you remember back when they got, I think it was Colbert, who they got to go speak at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and he gave that satirical speech, but they didn't realize he was a satirist, and they took it seriously when they were watching the show, and then got him up there and humiliated themselves. It was such a great moment.
Yeah.
But
about 25% of the population has no sense of humor.
Yeah.
And that's just a reality. That's kind of human nature. But I would rather not defer to people who don't have a sense of humor. I would rather society is allowed to be humorous and not have to say, oh, I'm joking now,
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely.
However, a lot of the people that are, as we know, being censored or not allowed to say anything, it's either you're a Russian agent, right? The way they pose this.
We're all Russians now.
You're a Russian agent.
It's amazing how they keep saying that over and over again, and it works apparently.
So after speaking of Russian agents, and as I had already pointed out, the State Department paying a British company to label people, we did have what some are saying is a possible second assassination attempt against President Trump, which I think you both might have something to say about.
Possible.
Right?
Possible.
Maybe. But wait, there's more. After that happened, just in terms of controlling the narrative, 28% of Democrats that were polled said it would have been better had one of those assassination attempts against Donald Trump been successful.
Yeah, and that's probably an accurate poll, unlike a lot of polls. And I say that because I've watched people just tweeting about it on X and on Facebook, and a lot of people are making jokes about it. Oh, good, too bad he missed, this and that. And it's so I don't know what word to use, disheartening that so many of my fellow humans are such despicable creatures. Well, first of all, you shouldn't wish that on Trump or anybody. And secondly, do they not realize that if this is the prevailing mindset, that it could be turned against themselves or people they like?
Exactly, precisely. And that's what Scott Ritter had always made the point about.
Damn, I look good.
That's why I actually wanted to change that. Yes. Now you made me forget what I was going to say, but I think his point was that, people have to be able to say,
it hurts. Jeff has his own music.
I'm gonna pour a little more wine actually for you, Jeff, and toast you because.
Do it.
There we go.
Let's all toast Jeff's sexiness.
All right. Yep.
Look, you may think me saying how sexy I am is disinformation, and that's possible, but it's not. It's not a crime, even in California.
Here's my question. If we can prove what they're saying is disinformation, can we throw them in jail? Because I have some questions about a lot of news anchors on mainstream news. Like, who determines if I?
Well, that's a fair point, but I don't know if we have any laws for that because so far, we got to make
Citizens
a distinction.
Arrest.
Why we have to? But even so, you need to peg it to a law. We have to make a distinction between this horrible rhetoric and laws. So we're talking about the California laws. They're talking about deep fake videos, political. I guess if it affects an election, you're right. It might in California. We might.
Wait. We can affect the election. We're citizens.
That's right.
We have the right to.
Well, no, I don't dispute that. I was just making sure there's actual law that a citizen.
If we weren't allowed to, then all the canvassing at people's doors I've done is really, really problematic.
I'm glad you mentioned. I've long felt that citizens' arrests are kind of ignored. Because I used to live in California and I looked it up before, and the authority that citizens have is mind-boggling. You actually, as a citizen, have the authority if you witness a public offense of any kind, not just a felony, not even just a misdemeanor, but even an infraction, meaning like a traffic violation. You have, I think so. We'll check this later about the traffic violation, but you have the authority to physically drag somebody off to the police or to a judge if you witness it. And even if you don't witness it, I think if it's a felony, maybe a misdemeanor too, but at least if it's a felony, even if you don't witness it, but you have reason to believe, you also have the authority to physically drag somebody off and take them to the police or a judge. Look it up.
Jeff Norman, Esquire.
Can I say if Hillary Clinton gets her way then and passes that law, can we be the first podcast to go into a citizen's arrest at like CNN?
We could, but here's the risk though, Wiley. Just like the police, we could be sued for false arrest. And unlike the police, we don't have the city we work for to back us to pay for the legal. But we could. And if we're in the right, we might get away with it or we might not. We could get shot too. That's always a risk. I'm going to
guess that we won't get away with it and we might get shot and we might get called terrorists.
So let's go back to this thing on the Trump assassination attempt. 49% of Americans say that Trump was probably responsible for it himself. So, but let's talk about this. I mean, this guy, what's his name? Ryan
Ruth.
And Ruth it's a weird story, right? I mean, immediately, I will say this immediately.
Recruiter for the Ukraine war. Yes, it is.
It is a weird story. Like, what's up with this guy, Ryan?
What would remember the phrase be? He has fingerprints of intelligence all over him.
By the way, in case you're wondering what this motion is, it's a wine pump. Don't get any naughty ideas.
Let's see. Please put it on the screen. Let's see your wine pump.
Let's
see your wine pump.
I'm pumping my wine. That's not a euphemism. Take it literally.
Oh,
here we go.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know, that's to suck the air out of it so that it lasts longer. Okay.
It's definitely just a pump for the wine.
Sorry, Hassan. Sorry about that.
Two people who are going to log in and they both said they didn't get notified. I don't know what that is. We'll try to figure it out. We don't know.
Hassan, yeah, I don't.
Notified
I don't
by what? On what platform do you expect?
He's
a
on
notification?
X. He's on X. He said he
X
lost
doesn't
the first
send notification. X doesn't send notification.
Yeah, if you follow, you can pick to follow just videos too.
Not if we stream through StreamYard.
Oh,
only if you do it directly to X.
Crazy.
So you see this beautiful studio that we have. We wouldn't have this if we did it directly to X. So that's why.
Got it.
Maybe a little inside baseball. How do you make sausages in the sausage factory?
We've got wine pumps. We've got inside baseball. We've got assassinations.
I don't know what podcast I just joined.
Oh, Citizens Arrest.
Oh my goodness!
All right, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about the assassination.
Yes.
Were you going to bring up something, or I have?
Well, I just wanted to make a point that remember the first kid who did the shooting. He was on some BlackRock ad, and then we see that this guy I think was also on a BlackRock ad, but also some other ads.
I don't know.
He was also on some Azov ads, but
I'm going to
bring. Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead? Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring this up while we were talking about it, because this is Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone just did incredible work pulling this stuff up like within a couple of hours of it happening, and it kind of goes through the list of all this stuff. So I don't know that it's a Gray Zone ad, although he's definitely in an Azov ad, which I did pull in.
Yeah, he did. He was for sure.
And whether that's funded by BlackRock or not, I don't know. So that's what I was assuming, where that confusion, because I've heard that both ways. But it's really noticeable that it said, he had gone over to volunteer in Kiev, and he was recruiting for the Foreign Legion, and the stories around it are kind of nuts. He was meeting with the Ukraine's Ministry of Defense every week, which, there are a lot of people debating how official like these roles are. And I think it kind of gets into this weird gray area that America has, both with things that are volunteer and with things that are subcontracted like XE or things like that, of what is actually state and what is a separate thing. But the fact that they were meeting consistently with the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense says to me that
politicians
and
he was a darling of the media.
Is now in custody for attempted murder against the Republican nominee, the former U.S. President Donald Trump. That guy has been interviewed countless times by every big media outlet in the United States.
Exactly.
He's got, a criminal record the length of your arm, 20 charges, including possession of weapons of mass destruction. The New York Times didn't bother to learn any of that before they held him up as a freedom fighter in Ukraine, where he was living. And then the piece describes the contact he's had with members of Congress and their staffs and other U.S. government agencies. And you're like, wait a second, that's the same guy who brought a rifle with a scope to a golf course in South Florida to murder Donald Trump, and he's had all these contacts with U.S. government agencies? Like, I don't know what that's about, but I think it's time to find out. No? Yes.
And here's another one.
Who you are and
this is
why
Newsweek.
I'm here.
That's right.
56 from the U.S. From North Carolina originally, so live in Hawaii now. So flew all the way from Hawaii here. So the question as far as why I'm
I like
here,
his blue and yellow hair.
To me, a lot of the other conflicts are gray, but this conflict is definitely black and white. This is about good versus evil. This is a storybook, any movie.
His eyes have that kind of
definitely evil against good.
Crazy thing.
I think what he's saying there is
where the Ukrainians and
really
the rest of the world are caring and kind.
What's hard to hear?
And generous and unselfish and take care of one another, and it's just a matter of we need to stand up for that. That is the most important thing in the world, is just to show human beings that we're kind and we're caring and that we take care of one another and that the world is united so that we feed each other and make sure that, we all move forward as one collective whole unit.
So I just think that clip is so nuts because he's reciting the propaganda spread by the mainstream media so word for word in a way where that story he just said is false. Like, that is not remotely what it is. And
plus, as Ryan said, he just looks crazy, doesn't he?
Yes.
I mean, he reminds me of E. Jean Carroll.
Oh. Wait, which one is E.G. and Carol?
Oh, that's funny.
Oh man.
I just
and remember this darling of the media, by the way. Do you remember Michael Avenatti?
Oh yeah.
Stormy Daniels' lawyer, who's now in prison. They were talking about him. The reason I thought of him is because this guy, the would-be assassin, was a darling of the media. So was Michael Avenatti, and he was obviously a lunatic. And lo and behold, he's now in prison. It's like, and they were talking about him being president. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, Avenatti.
Why?
That's right.
Why? Because he's good at insulting Trump. That was enough for this crowd that hates Trump, because he's good at insulting Trump.
But I think when it comes to the intelligence services, the preying on people who have records or who have things that are held over them, and the use of people who aren't stable, or even historically, like going in and doing, the CIA back in the 60s doing mind altering testing and things like that. The Unabomber was certainly an example of that. So
you're talking about like MK Ultra type.
I'm talking about like MK Ultra.
But I mean, I don't even know if you need that today, because people are believers.
I was going to say, I think there's a question as to whether the tactics they use in the media were developed in that stuff, or just if it's effective enough to have that impact, because they really do repeat things like treason, traitor, danger to I mean, if you tell someone at a 10 volume of Panic all the time that someone is dangerous, that you are in threat, that your democracy is in threat, what do you expect if someone's worldview is that?
People are more suggestible under conditions of heightened tension, that they would accept things under those conditions that under normal calm forms of thinking they would never accept. So that is definitely a thing.
How long do we have to look at this for you?
Well, no, I'm going to go to the next one, but I wanted to highlight the fact that he was seen with the person from World Central Kitchen, who was over working missions in Israel. I thought that was very interesting, just a little spooky. But then it goes through, and Max has found all these excerpts of a book he wrote, and he's literally talking about why he thinks we need to assassinate Putin and why we need to assassinate Trump. Like, these things were in writing before this man committed this crime in a publicly available place. So I just want to highlight like the good work that he did dragging all this stuff up and say like, holy shit.
We're doing good work.
We're doing by reading.
Well, that's bizarre. Well, let's drive people to his page instead of asking them to read this tiny print.
Is it that tiny?
It's tiny.
Yeah, it's way too small. It's way too small to read.
Where I'm sitting, is it hard?
Yeah, but some people watch on phones and or small monitors. It's way
tell
too
us
small.
in the comment if you really can't see it, because it looks plenty big to me. I can see it from where I'm sitting. Maybe my eyes are good.
Right. In Germany, you have Bild Zeitung, which has got lots of good pictures, but very few words.
But I did want to just highlight a couple other of these things that, like, he was considered to be the head of the International Volunteer Center. And I know we're talking about whether he's legitimate or whether he isn't. I would just say one thing that really adds to the fact that I think we should take it seriously, that they took him seriously, is that if they didn't want him out talking to people, he wouldn't be on Newsweek. He wouldn't have been in the news. He wouldn't have been in articles. They don't let people who they don't want people to see get on to those types of platforms. I just want to highlight that.
Yeah.
Now we can make my tiny stuff go away. I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right. Well, let's talk about what happened. Apparently, he was waiting for quite a long time, or at least in the vicinity, because according to court records, they introduced evidence which included data from his cell phone records. And that's how they determined that he was in the vicinity for about 12 hours prior to being noticed.
And the Secret Service never did a sweep of the area beforehand.
Ryan knows my thoughts on this, but I don't know. The Secret
Tell the audience. Tell the audience.
All I'm going to say is in the Kennedy assassination, the Secret Service looks very culpable. Like, stopped the vehicle, which was the opposite of what they were trying to do. And the other one, they picked a route that they should never have gone on. Like, the list is really long, and they ended up keeping a lot of artifacts that it really wasn't appropriate to keep private, that were kind of spiteful towards Kennedy. Some really dark shit. Just saying.
Well, whether or not they're
and I think in the last one, I'm sorry, but
Jeff, do you have more pictures? We don't need. He doesn't have 6-pack abs, and we got to look at.
Well, by the way, yeah. What's the story on the T-shirt that's so sexy there? Is that like his style, or did that happen when the police were making sure he didn't have weapons? Which is
when I'm going to shoot people from the bushes, I definitely go crop top. I'm just saying.
That's quite a crop top, actually.
Really? Do you think that's his look, or do you think it's happening?
No, I think they roughed him up, right? Because
no, they wouldn't have roughed him up. But I mean,
you don't think so?
I'm too sexy for my shirt. Too sexy for my shirt. So sexy it hurts.
I don't know what to think. All right, I'm trying to find I can't upload it. I'm trying to do a share screen now. I've got a photograph of the hedges around now. But what you said, Wiley, if I may call you Wiley, is
I hope so.
Yeah. Depends on whether or not, or how. I'm sorry. It depends on how many agents there were there, whether or not there was sufficient manpower.
So when we put
a golf course, let me finish. A golf course has a lot of acreage, right? So,
it does. It does. It has a lot of acreage. Here's what I'll say. It was during the Obama administration. There's this great article. People should look it up. I don't have it pulled right now. But they talk about how much more money they put into the Secret Service at that juncture, because they're talking about how the Kennedy assassination would never happen now. And they go through a detailed list of how much it changed. And when Trump almost gets assassinated, there are fewer people there than there were back at that time.
Is that where he was hanging out?
Yeah, this is a local TV station. Took this shot from the outside. This is the perimeter around the golf course. So they're showing where he got in or could have gotten in.
Did anyone start with the narrative about blaming Trump for being on a golf course and saying it was unsafe out of curiosity? I don't
know, but whether or not
his golf course.
Yeah.
Well, forget the blame game. Let's talk about, how vulnerable he is on a golf course. Whose ever fault it is. One thing is, we brought up this thing about 12 hours before. Did he know? A lot of people are saying, well, how did he know that Trump was going to be golfing? Well, maybe he knew, or maybe he's just taking his chances and waiting. Maybe he's doing this every day until Trump shows up. I don't know.
He probably knew. I'm just going to put my cards on the table that I guess.
That's possible, but I don't know how you reach that conclusion and rule out that he was just guessing. Who knows?
I'd say one is more likely than the other, but
So you see what I'm saying? There's 18 holes. I don't know how many acres are on a golf course, but a lot.
Every president golfs all the time, and this has not happened. Think about how many times every president, when you want to insult the other president, you talk about how much they golf.
Well, that might be because nobody tried to kill them on a golf course. That doesn't mean the Secret Service failed.
I think.
You think it does?
I'm not talking about the Secret Service failing. That's not what I'm saying to begin with. So, I'm saying the Secret Service is always there, and they manage to secure golf courses 99.9% of the time.
Yeah. Now, Trump himself, as he has been doing since this assassination thing started, continues to praise the agents who are on the ground, which is perfectly fine. But I find it a little bit curious that he doesn't say anything about, why was there not enough protection to stop them? Here he is on, he's starting to do a lot of podcasts recently. I forgot which podcast he was on, but here's a little audio of Trump praising the agents who are on the ground.
Secret Service agent had seen a barrel of a AK-47, which is a very powerful rifle, and he started shooting at the barrel, started shooting in the bushes. Well, could only see the barrel. How good is that, right? But could only see the barrel. Based on that, he started shooting and ran toward the target. And was shooting a lot of, I mean, those were the shots we heard. The other one never got a shot off. So the agent did a fantastic job.
Okay, fair enough. But he doesn't seem too concerned about. He doesn't seem too concerned about what's happening above the agents on the ground.
Yeah, he doesn't. Well, and I don't know that it. His opinion on. Would you say something negative about the people who are responsible for your life, even if you thought there was something going on? I guess.
I don't know. It might be that he doesn't want to advertise how vulnerable he is, because that might just invite more.
That's my point.
Assassin. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to pick a fight with the people responsible for my security either.
Well,
it doesn't look.
I mean, again, it goes back to Jean-Pierre saying Trump is the threat, and you're a threat for questioning this. So it goes back to creating an environment where people are almost self-deployed, where you don't need a patsy. There are willing patsies. I think a lot of the things that were done throughout history that you mentioned, like MKUltra, those things aren't as necessary because we've had literally, since the 60s of an cultural warfare against thinking and that kind of thing. You have an environment that's created it. You don't necessarily have to have a Manchurian candidate.
I don't disagree with that. I think they've done it differently every time. So I think when you talk about RFK versus JFK, or when you talk about Malcolm X, or when you talk about, Martin Luther King Jr., when you're talking about all the different assassinations, all of them were kind of done with a different method. And yeah, some of them might have been more driven. Some of them might not have been. Some of them might have been top down. Some of them might not have been. But I don't think it rules it out to say that there are people who might have those views. And I think there's also a big question about the role of having services stand down or doing things from the top, like Jeff mentioned, to inhibit, to add to that, because there are assassination attempts foiled all the time on presidential leaders in America too. Like, there are a lot we'll never hear about.
So
you only hear about it if you
there was a discussion between Garland Nixon and Scott Ritter today. And he said, look, Scott Ritter, that is, said, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but he, again, like I had said from the article from Matt Taibbi, in terms of the State Department funding, basically blacklists, we know that the Ukrainian government has a hit list. And what he then said is that certainly Donald Trump, RFK, why not others? We know Tulsi Gabbard was on a list by the State Department as a terrorist, right? So that the potential for other governments to be organized to assassinate these guys, it's absolutely a viable thing. We're in that kind of situation where we have a potential complete paradigm shift in the world. You have a reversal in the United States where the Democratic Party, which was the party that was, Crypto AG said presidential assassinations are as American as apple pie. That is unfortunately very true. But the party that was supposed to be the anti-war party, the party that was supposed to be the party for the working man, is now the war party. And so it's a complete realignment. So anything about parties, my tribe, how things have to go, that's all out the window now. It's about how you think.
Well, and I don't
Leadership.
know that, because when you look at, so I do think that there's something connected to, I don't know about the actual assassin in this instance, although this one seems way more connected than the other. I thought this quote from Dmitry Medvedev was worthwhile, which was, I wonder what would happen if it turned out that the failed new Trump shooter Ruth who was recruited by Ukrainian army, was himself hired by the neo-Nazi Ukraine regime to assassinate. And I think that's an interesting question. But I also think, when we're talking about a reversal, I don't know if it's even fair to say that it's the specific candidates, because, when Kennedy gets assassinated, it's still a Democrat who comes in, but it reverses whether we're going to pull out or go into the Vietnam War.
Yeah, it's not about party. It's
huge
about
thing.
the shift in policy.
Yeah.
And just as a segue on that, though, Alicia said in the comments, and everybody now has to be afraid of the devices in their possession.
Perfect transition.
It is absolutely.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Trump isn't walking around with a pager now.
I just threw my pager out, actually, because I play a doctor on TV and they gave me a pager. So,
of course, we're talking about the explosions in Lebanon. And the thing is, we can look at this in a couple of ways. One is to analyze, what apparently Israel did. I don't think there's too much of a mystery about who did it. But, the whole idea of subjecting innocent people to this kind of carnage is just terrible. But also, what does it suggest in terms of all of us being vulnerable to this sort of thing? As a podcaster, I'm very conscious of the different chokeholds, as we call it, that could end us, meaning that if they take us off certain social media platforms, that's a problem. If the bank account cancels us, that's a problem. If the payment processor cancels us, that's a problem. So analogous to that is the supply chain. So when I asked the inspector, I think it was yesterday, Scott was saying, well, Motorola is to blame. But then I saw some information that no, it was really happened when it was being delivered. It was intercepted. And it's
not just
what about everything else that's intercepted or that could be intercepted? And how much do we have to worry about that? What do you think?
We do. I mean, that's.
Which is so that was a motorcycle that got hit? That's inside someone's house? A car radio?
Yeah.
That they stacked? And there's one more where it shows a solar panel. So these are not targeted. These are not targeted. It's insane.
No, I mean, it is, to what you're saying, Jeff, it is scary in that sense. But I think kind of the idea of being intimidated, so that you don't think about what's fundamental here. What's fundamental is that there's a fight over whether we're going into war or we're going to swap the entire policy and deal with improving the country again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I mean, I think so. It's explosives that they put into all of these devices, but I find it really interesting because I think the way the media is framing it is really problematic. A lot of the way it's been covered too acts like they call them Hezbollah pagers, but these are just pagers and other devices that they got through shipping. I have another video of an entire electronics store on fire. And the truth is, the concept that there is just a Hezbollah pager and not,
Well, no. So again, this
isn't
was
realistic.
on this previous show that actually these were Taiwanese pagers that were the company was based in Hungary. The company was probably purchased ahead of time, some time ago. So this has been a long time in the works. This is not something that just happened.
Yeah, they said before April.
I'm sure. I bet you it was even longer ago than that, without knowing any details about it. So, I mean, the thing is that this, but this is also a one-time thing.
No, it's been happening all day today.
No,
it's
what
still
I'm saying
on.
is not something that is an effective military strategy. This is simply terrorism. This is not something that you can't make policy with this kind of activity. It's different because I think now one question I have: did the Houthis launch this new hypersonic missile in retaliation to this? I think they did, because it went around the what's it called, the
Iron Dome. I thought that happened the day before, actually.
Maybe it was the day before.
Yeah.
But I'm not exactly sure. I don't.
But Israel's been bombing the hell out of Yemen, so I wouldn't.
There's no doubt about it. But in other words, there's a difference between a military action and something that is just indiscriminate. I think that's the word that they use. It's an indiscriminate kind of activity.
Yeah, it is indiscriminate, and especially in the way that they did it, because they really didn't have any guarantee. First off, they weren't targeting militants. They were targeting anyone who had a pager. And the Hezbollah is a political party. America framing it as a terrorist organization, we're one of the only countries that even consider them to be a terrorist organization, first off. And second off, they are a part of the government. So they have roles just like a Democrat or a Republican would in things in the city, in education, in hospitals. We actually had a paper that referred to it as a Hezbollah hospital. What kind of
Who knows? I mean,
crap?
I
No, that's
have
not
idea.
real. That's not a thing. That's Western propaganda.
What is?
That is a big battery.
No, it's not a battery.
No, this is a Bluetooth. This is a Bluetooth speaker, and Ryan and I both own this.
Because I want to be like Jeff.
And I recommended it to Ryan, and he bought it.
Yes.
And it's great. It's one of the best purchases I ever made. But there was a email notice sent out saying that we might have to recover this depending on exactly which model you have, because these are known to explode.
Oh no!
So I blew it. This was within the last few months, like a couple of months ago.
I think I blew that email off.
No, you reply. You go, "Oh, I don't have that one," and I'm like, I couldn't even tell whether or not I have it. Yeah.
That's right. You got to look in the serial number.
Yeah, I couldn't even. So I'm like, I don't know. I forget about it. But I go to bed sometimes and I watch podcasts or whatever with this like right next to my head. So I'm not saying that the manufacturer would do it intentionally, but this is making me think anew that, oh my gosh, maybe this sort of thing could happen. And, the larger issue, of course, is who can get their hands on products that are being shipped and might be able to do something like this.
If you own the entire supply chain, which, I mean...
Yeah, but I don't know that there's evidence that it came from the supply chain as much as the shipping, like that it was intercepted. It'll be interesting to see when they finally prove that.
It's not clear.
Yeah. I don't think...
I just know that my Tesla burst into flames when I had it self-drive to the wine store to pick up this bottle of wine.
Oh, God. Well, and I will say for me, the biggest question it raised was, if this happened way back before April and we had Raisi being assassinated in this random event in a helicopter that flies out of the sky when all the other pilots said, no, we weren't in weather. No, there was nothing else going on. I have questions about if that's something we should be considering as a potential cause. Who knows?
Well, that would be valid to ask those questions. Well, I don't know what happened to Ryan, but
we lost Ryan.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, we've been at it for about an hour, so shall we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Wiley had a 1,000-page paper that she was just about to. No, I'm teasing you. I'm teasing 7 pages.
Could we very quickly just hit on the fact that my congressperson was endorsing the acts of terrorism, and all of the people in our government that were openly endorsing acts of terrorism? Can we just quickly talk about that? Because here's some folks, including my congressman Brad Sherman, right over here in the corner.
Where?
I wish there was a way to make it bigger, guys. I had to combine it on a 1 page because we didn't have enough space. They only let us upload 10 of these. Is there a way to make it bigger?
No. Not here.
Well, here. That was it. My congressperson is openly endorsing what's happening right now. And it's shocking. And it's really disturbing. And I wanted to know what you guys' perspective was of all these Congress people who were coming out. There were quite a few. I saw a bunch of Republicans, but Brad Sherman's a Democrat. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, what are they saying?
Brad Sherman and all of these people are saying, oh, that's not the right one. Sorry. What he said was it was a pinpointed attack, and that this was a great accomplishment. Pinpointed attack, great accomplishment. And that line was repeated over and over again. And then we have the media playing cover for them, phrasing it in such a way that they won't frame it as Israel. Matt Miller won't admit it's Israel. I have a video clip of that too. It's nuts. Like, what are people's thoughts on that?
Well, I already said that it's inhumane, and I don't know how any reasonable person could say it was pinpointed. A lot of innocent people were killed and or injured. So you can say you're for that or you're against that, but to say that it didn't happen is just delusional or an outright intentional lie. That's what I said.
Yeah.
And is there any way to call it not terrorism? That's my other question.
Nope.
I think I just gave the definition of terrorism.
That's what I thought too. But what is wrong with our Congress? Like,
well,
there are that many
it's
people
again,
in
it's
Congress.
creating narrative. That's what it amounts to. So, I would like to end with a final critical scientific observation that any wine that is made from no specific grape variety is called a red blend.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
So wait, it's a blend if they don't know what type of grapes it is? Is that what you're saying?
That's
okay.
right.
I mean, if they do, who's they?
Lesson learned.
That
the wine gods.
I didn't say they. This is the rule. A red blend is just any wine that is not made from any specific variety of grape. Because you were saying Cabernet Sauvignon is a blend, and that specific has a specific thing. So I know, Jeff.
I have no idea what you're talking. I have no idea what you're talking about. It seems to. I don't know anything about grapes, but it seems to me that the winemakers would know what kind of grapes they're using. No.
If they choose to do that, yeah. But a blend is like, hey, let's just get everything that's out in the backyard and throw it into the masher and go.
That makes sense. You don't want to waste grapes.
Yep.
This makes sense to me. Is this not?
All right.
All right.
Well, I wonder if that's what makes wine complex. I have trouble with the adjectives, but I know that I like. What I always awkwardly say is like, there's two or three different things going on. You taste one thing, and then a second or two later another, and then the finish and all that. I wonder if a blend is what tends to produce that kind of wine because there are different kind of grapes, or if you could get that from just one.
They could be
kind
different all the time, though. That's the thing with the blend.
Mm-hmm. All right. I don't think you answered my question.
No, not necessarily, but I am saying blends can be different all the time.
Yeah, but do blends make it more likely that you'll have what I like, which is that there's more than one thing going on?
Oh, there's more than one thing going on. Yes.
Yeah,
but it might be different. You might get a bottle of wine, say, "This is a great bottle of wine. I'm going to get this one," and then the next time you're like, "This doesn't taste anything like it did last time I got."
We need to get a couple of winemakers on as a guest or something to talk to them.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thanks to our beloved audience, and we will see you next week at the same time. Take care, everybody.
Alicia, bye.
Did Ryan have enough?